Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, welcome to the City Council study session for Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. We have one item on the agenda, discussion of proposal from Sooner Fashion Mall, for a sales tax for a sales tax rebate agreement. And we have City Attorney Catherine Walker here to discuss that details with us.
Okay, so just a little background. This mall's been around quite a while, my whole life. Opened in 1976 as a regional mall. The Dillard space, I think, was added in 1989, and they actually purchased that site and some acreage of parking in 2000. It was last renovated in 1999 to 2000. And it currently has about 500,000 square feet or so of retail space with over 40 retailers, 3 anchor tenant spaces in the mall, JCPenney, Dillard's, and then the former Sears parcel. It's operated as a Sooner Fashion Mall, we'll be glad to know, LLC. But the parent company is General Growth Properties, which owns malls all over the country, including Coral Springs Mall in Oklahoma City. Sooner Mall approached the city some time ago to request a rebate of sales tax generated to reimburse for some property costs. So I want to kind of go into the details of that. First, I just want to say generally, we talked to EDAB about this back in November, and we're going to meet again tomorrow. Couldn't get the group together with a quorum before then, but we'll talk about this proposal then. It's changed since November, but we talked in that meeting about the Economic Development Incentives Policy. We have one. It was adopted in 2013, and we use it to provide guidance to EDAB and the Norman Economic Development Authority, which is one of our public trusts. It hasn't really been utilized for economic development. It was really focused on bringing in certain industries and quality jobs and things like that. So it doesn't really address retail directly, but I wanted to point it out because it does recognize sales tax rebates as an economic development tool. And we'd previously discussed a proposed rebate to entice Costco back in 2019. And so this is a new area for us. We haven't really done sales tax rebates before in this form. I wanted to just point out that policy, and I think I've said in other meetings, like, if we want to do retail incentives, we probably should modify this policy to incorporate some of that. But it does at least recognize sales tax rebates as an economic development tool. It has some criteria in there, some mandatory, mostly advisory, recognition that proposals are not going to meet all of those criteria, and you have to provide some information to let staff make some analysis, and EDAB to make an analysis of the indirect and direct impacts of the project, and then it contemplates a performance agreement. Here, this proposal is a little bit different because it's a rebate proposal, so the performance has already happened. So it'll be a little bit different, but I just wanted to point out that policy because it's just kind of been sitting there, and I know a lot of people that have been here since 2012 may not have heard of it. So Sooner Fashion Mall has been, a staple in the community for a long time. This is something that Sarah Kaplan pulled for me to just compare the mall and Parkway Plaza. And you can see, of course, the big hit in 2020 and then slowly improving since then. But it's been relatively flat in terms of visitors the last 3 years.
Just to clarify, Parkway Plaza, you mean Ed Noble Parkway?
Yes, sorry. That is Ed Noble Parkway.
So it's shown a little bit of an upward trend over the last 5 years.
Yeah, they underwent a change in ownership, I think 2020, 2021, and did some improvements and has seen some growth. Not as large as Sooner Mall, but steady growth in this chart. You can see here in terms of visits, they're both averaging really close to 2 million visits a year at both Parkway Plaza, Ed Noble Parkway, and Sooner Mall. And so they're kind of rocking along pretty steady at that rate. So under this proposal, and I do want to say we have Derek Colville here. There you are. You moved. From Sooner Mall. He is the manager for the mall, and he can answer any mall specific questions. Under this proposal, the mall would receive up to 100% of new non-dedicated sales tax revenue. So that's the 2.3% revenue that isn't dedicated to Norman Forward, PSST, or things, capital sales tax, things like that. It's that 2.3% portion. The mall would receive up to 100% of the new revenue. New is anything earned over a 3-year average, and that's from 2022 to 2024. That's about at $1.5 million a year in annual non-dedicated sales tax revenue. So the potential rate rebate, we now have 2025 sales in. The potential rebate based on those sales, that growth would be $60,000 and change. That could of course change over time. If the anchor space, the Sears space is filled, that could increase substantially. If it doesn't fill, this is probably pretty, probably what you could expect. It would max out at $300,000 per year. The agreement would go on for an initial term of 5 years, but it could be renewed for up to 2 additional 3-year terms based on progress and approval by the City Council. The important thing here is it's a rebate, but it's a rebate for certain costs. So the mall will have to incur property costs and be able to document those in order to be eligible for the rebate. Property costs are defined as all capital improvement costs for improvement of property or to draw new tenants, excluding routine maintenance. You see some examples here: tenant allowance, landlord work, interior lighting upgrades, common area amenities, restroom remodels, construction of a community gathering place, things along those lines, down to landscaping, paving, mill overlay, those kind of things. Also important to note is that any business that relocates from elsewhere in Norman into the mall property would not be subject to, or would not be included in the calculation of new sales tax revenue. So I wanted to get your feedback on this. I know some of you have been aware this has been an ongoing discussion. I will get you EDAB's feedback tomorrow and share that with council. If council desires to move forward with this or some version of this, what we would do is bring the term sheet forward to council for approval, and then the mall's attorney and I will start working on an actual rebate agreement that will really hammer out all of those details and bring that forward to council in the next couple months. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I did want to point out though, this is Exhibit A to the term sheet, which was in your packets. When we talk about the Sooner Mall site, although there's, Dillard's is owned separately, and I think Longhorn Steakhouse is as well, this is the site we're talking about. So when we talk about the sales tax revenue over the last 3 years as the baseline, it's everything in pink. And when we talk about growth and new sales tax revenue, it's going to be everything in pink that's figured into that.
And what was the total sales of the mall most recently? Is that
66 million?
Yeah.
in the 60, mid-60 million?
Mid to upper 60s in the middle.
That's yearly total sales for that property.
Mm-hmm.
And on that map, we don't see it because it's a map for a different thing, but we have talked in the past, and Scott may know off the top, it's a gas line easement. Derek that's.
Yeah, it's high pressure petroleum.
Oh, okay. And we've talked about, could other things happen in this part of the parking lot? And wherever that line lives on that map, as long as we don't try to put something on top of it, the mall would have the ability to develop. Since there are no parking minimums, it would be up to the mall ownership group to determine how many parking spaces they ultimately needed.
It cuts through the east side, almost directly in between the Longhorn pad and the old Sears garage. Going north and kind of in an angle north and south.
Got it.
And it's got a 5-foot easement per each side, so there's a total of 100-foot easement there.
Councilor Grant?
I just have a money question. So I'm hearing 300,000 a year up to 5 years first term, and we can renew. So it's about 1.5 million for those 5 years. And you were saying potentially more. What is like the range? Like 1.5 to 2 million?
Well, it'll max out at 300,000. Just looking at 2025 sales, the first year, what they would be eligible for is around 60,000 or so dollars. I was just pointing out if the vacant anchor space were to fill, that number could grow
To 300K max.
up to 300K.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't know where we'll be as a council after 5 years, but what would be reasons to keep renewing?
You recognized successful investment, reinvestment in the property, and the infill to be largely, and I'll use the wrong term, but Derek can correct me, the regional tenants as opposed to local tenants, and that kind of definition is one of the regional tenants may do 4 million a year in retail sales inside the mall, and a local tenant may do 150,000 sales inside the mall. So obviously to generate sales tax growth, we need those regional retailers occupying the space, and that's the competitiveness
So
mall group
the
needs.
after the next 5 years, there could be more regional
Absolutely.
interest and trying to entice them to set up shop here. Got it. Okay, that's pretty it.
Councilmember No Fire?
I've been over here doing a little mathing, and that works out to a little over $13 million of income on top of what they're pulling in right now to reach their target of rebates. And then since that's only the undedicated portion, the dedicated portions, if they reach their max, would also bring in $691,000 for all of our other programs that are dedicated. So just want to throw that out there. And then I do actually have one question. Are you looking at any specific tenants for the Sears?
We are, it's under non-disclosure,
Okay.
but it's a multi-million-dollar investment
Okay.
for a full development of it.
I've done that math as well. Also have 13 million and some change in sales to reach that 300,000.
Is what it would have to increase by.
That would be the increase, right?
And if I'm not mistaken, that puts us still shy of where we were pre-pandemic.
Pre-Sears, yeah, pre-pandemic, pre-Sears closing.
And is there, sorry,
Councilmember Grant?
is there an estimate of visitors for this anchor tenant?
If it mimics what Sears had, anywhere around 750,000 people a year
Additional.
additional.
Pre-pandemic, the revenues of the entire parcel, because we can't get into individual stores, was close to 89 million. So that was
Those were the good days.
$23 million
Okay.
lost since then.
And about 3.3 million visitors a year.
Okay.
And to be clear, this proposal's not tied to that
No.
proposal, that tenant attracting
No.
any specific tenant.
Yep.
This is general improvements to the mall property
That's correct.
and public spaces of the mall.
When I bump into Derek, I always root for more food court options, and if you had another 750,000 people walking through the door,
Helps with that.
that would be awesome.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want
Bruce?
to touch base on the non-discretionary things that are still gonna be funded. That's AIM, right, PSST and transportation, capital program.
Going forward.
Going forward.
Yes, sir.
We have 2.3% is what goes to the general fund. And so the remainder is capital improvements, public safety, Norman Forward, and then the transit. And so those funds would not be negatively impacted.
They're like non-discretionary, right? That's what is that the right word?
Right,
Non-discretionary.
that's a good way to put it, yeah.
And we've talked a little bit too about there's potential with, there is a lot of parking out there that isn't always, not all of it is used most of the time. And potential for more infill development on the mall property, maybe a hotel at some point, maybe apartments, who knows? But I think there's a lot of potential for this property to be viable going forward many more years. Councilor Hinkle?
I agree with you on the infill opportunity. I think with mandatory parking minimums gone, creating a dense base of residents over there could potentially help. There's a lot of space that could be used for that, and I think it would bring them all up. But traveling to a lot of, I don't know, it's just my morbid curiosity, I guess, but I like to go to malls in small towns and see what they look like and what's left of them. And I remember the long and slow death of Crossroads not too long ago, but for the longest time, I've been saying that the reasons that our mall has stayed viable for so long are the 2 Ds, and that's Dillard's and Derek. We truly are blessed to have somebody as committed as him, who's been here for such a long time, to keep our mall a viable part of our community, and I think we want to keep that. So if we're going to cap it anyway, then I'd say give them whatever percentage, give them the highest percentage that we can to get them there as fast so that they can make the improvements that they need to keep our mall from being Bartlesville or Muskogee or Shawnee or
Midwest City recently having to
Shepherd's
take
Mall.
that one over.
There's lots of failed malls, and ours has always kind of hung on. So if we have an opportunity to give it some new blood, then I say we do it. Just get it to them as quick as they can, because we definitely don't want that much retail space sitting vacant.
Well, I think the mall's been here for 50 years. It's established. It's a part of many of our lives. I grew up in Columbia, of course, and it's really a part of, I've always described, I've talked to Derek, it's malls are a part of a piece of American history, the mall culture and all of that that existed. And I think being able to preserve something like this that is still doing pretty well and might have the opportunity to get back to the levels it was at before, if not exceed those. I think it's worth considering by us for
I
sure.
agree, just to give it an opportunity. I mean, we're at a precipice now where malls are failing all over the place, so if we can be forward-thinking and proactive to get just some resources.
Any other comments, questions, Councilor Hansberry?
I agree with sitting there on I-35 right as you come really into the heart of town and everything like that. Being able to look over and see that there shows open for business, you know, open for people to come in here, a quality of life for people to go visit and everything like that. So I would agree with Councilman Hinkle and everything about giving whatever's full amount possible and everything, try to get it on our hearing in council and everything like that to get it approved for them as quick as possible.
In this conversation, one of the thoughts that occurred to me is that I-35 Main Street, Norman, Oklahoma visibility signage has changed a lot since the mall was originally built. The opportunity to entertain and allow Derek and his company to help us lead the way to modifications to the sign ordinance to say what should signage at the mall look like. And it's not a matter of it's going to be 300 feet high, because sign experts will tell you exactly how high your sign should be and exactly how many square feet it should take to message properly and be seen at highway speeds and be, seen in a timely enough fashion to get on and off at Main Street, and to be able to modernize our sign ordinance, maybe driven by what could be happening here, I think would be an interesting, fun experience for us to be able to go through and maybe lead the way for a new sign ordinance that everybody else will want to adopt and follow.
Yes, this question is for Derek. I know you can't say because of disclosure reasons who the anchor tenant is, but do you have a rough idea of how many jobs, if you were able to secure that tenant, would be created?
200 plus.
200 plus. And then what kind of wages does that tenant pay? Is it like $10 to $15 an hour wage?
I'd say it's probably 15 up.
Okay.
I will say it's a new to market concept. There's only one of the other ones in the state of Oklahoma, so we would be the second. We are in a pre-sale agreement with them.
Okay.
Papers haven't been signed yet, but preliminary talks have been around a $25 to $28 million investment into development on the property.
Okay. And then how many vacancies do you have in the mall currently?
Off the top of my head, I'm gonna probably 7 to 9.
And this is a real rough estimate. how many employees do you think each space could employ if it was like some of the other businesses in the mall? Are you talking like 200 to 300 other jobs?
No, I wouldn't say that. You've got Dillard's that is roughly, 150 plus. This tenant would be 150 plus. Most small shops, depending on size, anywhere from 5 to 15.
Times 7 or 9 spaces?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's definitely some job growth over
Yeah.
there to be had. All right, I appreciate it.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Councilmember Hinkle said. I personally spend a lot of time at the mall, so I don't want to see it go anywhere. I remember it started in 1976. I was born in 1975, so and so it's been like my whole life. So I love it, and my children love it. And if I didn't try to save it, I would never hear the end of it. So they love hanging out there, especially since the new arcade and now the putt-putt. And so, I could sit here and list all the stores. But so anyway, I definitely support what Councilmember Hinkle said.
And we'll get a report back from EDAB about.
Yeah, and I think the mall would like it to be on the agenda for next Tuesday, if that's possible, the term sheet. So we can include that in the agenda.
Is that a first reading? Or
It'll be an agreement,
Just a
yeah, so
contract?
it's just a
Yeah.
contract.
So with consensus, it could be on the consent docket at your,
Which,
It's attached to that.
See if we can get ODOT to do something about the interstate drive and how it connects to the entrance of the mall. That somehow works, but it's just always been a weird
I
dance
think
there.
fix that with the bridge.
Is there an objection from anybody of this being on the agenda next Tuesday? Okay. Then I guess based on feedback of EDAB, if they don't recommend it, then we might have a further discussion.
Okay.
But yeah,
then we'll proceed accordingly.
okay.
Thank you, council.